What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew to talk all about Zach Merrett. Now, why would I talk about Zach Merrett? Geelong haven't been linked to Zach Merrett. Why is that relevant on the Hoops Crew? I hear you say. I understand why you might say that, but there's a very complicated picture here that does ultimately involve the Cats, even if Zach Merrett's name never gets linked to the Geelong Football Club. So let's talk about how and why this could be the case. If I get really simplistic about it, the Cats and the Hawks have been chasing a lot of the same players this year. Geelong and Hawthorn have very similar needs right now. They are both trying to top up in certain parts of the midfield. And that's going to mean that our clubs continue to bump heads over the same sorts of players. We heard it about Harley Reid. We've heard it about Zach Butters. And there's a range of others, I'm sure, that have not been spoken about yet, that the two teams are going to go to war over. And so Zach Merrett, and the fact that he's not been linked to the Cats so far anyway, could prove to be a really great thing in our pursuit of some other players. So I'm going to talk about Zach Merrett, the potential transactions, and how things could look to get into Hawthorn, because that's going to lead to our conversation around the Cats and some of the other players that we're chasing. We'll do all that after a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's talk a little bit about this transaction and what it's going to take. So I've projected here, Fox Footy's put together a few kind of what-ifs, kind of highlighting the Zach Merrett situation and what a potential transaction could look like. Now, these are all hypotheticals, of course, but it really does sound like the relationship now between Zach Merrett and Essendon is borderline untenable at this point. So how he gets to a point where he ultimately departs remains to be seen, but it does sound like it's really, as being discussed here, it's starting to really turn nasty. I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to go to the Hawks. They're just two in this already. They're the only club that seems to be linked to it. And Zach Merrett's trying to chase success. Hawthorn are going to be there or thereabouts. So given this, let's take a look at some of their hypotheticals. And these are just mock-ups. And of course, they're not necessarily how it's really going to eventuate. But there's a pattern here that I want to kind of hone in on. And it's kind of, I think, what most people would kind of assume that he's worth, or in the ballpark of what most people would think that Zach Merrett is worth. And we'll go from there. So we've got our first hypothetical here where Zach Merrett goes to Hawthorn, Essendon gets pick 8, a 2026 first-round pick, and Cam McKenzie. We've got another hypothetical here, pick 8, pick 26, which comes from Carlton, a 2026 first round, and then a no-name in Henry Huswaite. We've then got Zach Merrett and a third-round pick that's a third-round pick going over, and then you've got pick 8, a 2026 first-round pick, and Mitch Lewis. You've got hypothetical 4 here. We've got pick 8, pick 26, a 2026 first-round pick, and Jai Sarong. You've got pick 8, a 2026 first-round pick, a 2027 second-round pick. Keep in mind, you're allowed to trade multiple years worth of picks at this point. Now, what I want to hone in on here as we go through all this is the pattern that I'm sure you've observed as you've gone through. Sure, there's a first-round pick this year, but there's also a first-round pick from next year. Now, the player I want to hone in on is Zach Butters. Zach Butters is the player that has been linked to Geelong quite a lot over the course of the year, as well as the Hawks, as well as the Bulldogs. The Hawks are one of the main sticks in the mud when it comes to this particular conversation because they've been so good at engaging with other players in the last few years. And hell, let's go back 10, 15 years really, because the way they pried the likes of Brian Lake, etc., out of their clubs allowed for their dominant period. And they're looking to, I think, go down that path again. They've been very successful in the last few years, prying out key players from other clubs, and they're looking to do that again with the Zach Merrett, with the Zach Butters, with the Harley Reid, etc. And so when it comes to Zach Butters, if Hawthorn has to give up this much, and because Zach Merrett is in contract, it means that Essendon's demands can be greater. We're seeing this pick 8 from this year come up, or like a first round from 2025 come up. You've then got the conversation about a second first round pick, but that's coming from 2026. And what this does for Hawthorn is it takes away a lot of their options when it comes to transacting for Zach Butters, a player that both Geelong and Hawthorn want, but Hawthorn is far less likely to be able to pay the price required now. So I'm really keen on Zach Merrett getting to Hawthorn because, sure, for 12 months, it makes Hawthorn much more dangerous. I think, like many others, if I had the schoolyard pick opportunity, would pick Zach Butters over Zach Merrett. Certainly, when we asked this question on the Paul James show last week, in the live chat responded, it was like a 90 to 95% vote in favor of Zach Butters over Zach Merrett. I'm firmly of the mind that if Hawthorn transacts here to get Zach Merrett, and they're going to have to transact to get Zach Merrett, he can't walk away as a free agent. There's none of those levers that can be pulled. Then they're going to have to pay a fairly hefty price. And that is going to, in a lot of ways, take them out of the race for a Zach Butters. Now, the other thing that Geelong can do in this chase is then go and lock down Ken Hinkley. Ken Hinkley, obviously a former Cats legend, done so many things for the Cats over the years. He's now stepped away from Port Adelaide. I think still wants to be involved in the coaching ranks somehow. Let's bring him over in Stephen King's empty space to be a leader within the Geelong Football Club, because then we've all heard how tight Ken and Zach have been. That's a lever you can pull to try and coax Zach Butters over to the Cats as well. But that helps in the race against the Bulldogs. In terms of the Zach Merrett thing, it takes one club off the table. I think Hawthorn can, and apparently they're doing all right and can afford some big names. But I think the financials is one thing. The actual picks, the actual capital to be able to offer the Essendon Football Club to get their prized captain out is going to be huge. And it's going to take them out of the running for a Zach Butters and potentially some other big names in this 2026 trade and free agency period that will come up in 12 months from now. And so I think this is a really great situation for Geelong because, look, Hawthorn's going to be more dangerous for 12 months. And I'm recording this before our prelim final. Who knows how that game results? Maybe we lose to Hawthorn and we're like, well, geez, and now they're going to get even stronger. Maybe I'll start to get a little bit more concerned about what I've had to say just now about this particular topic. But I think at face value, we want Butters. They want Merrett and Butters. They're going to have to choose. They seem to be choosing, well, we need to lock someone down now. Let's be sure of this. Let's get Merrett, which unlocks Zach Butters for the Cats and the Dogs without as much competition from the Hawks. And I think this can only be a good thing. So let me know what you think, viewers, today about the idea of Zach Merrett going to the Hawks and how that could potentially be a good thing for the Cats in a kind of backwards way. Obviously, the Hawks are going to be a better team for his presence, but I really like the animalistic approach of Zach Butters that's potentially going to come our way 12 months further down the road. Let me know what you think anyway in the comment section. And if you like this video, make sure to drop a like on it. Subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube and check out all of the content that we're producing from myself, Ben, and the chaps. There's some awesome stuff. Please consider checking it out. Share these videos with your friends and family to get the word out there. We want more good Geelong and neutral supporters checking out all of our content because we hope that we are making good Geelong but also neutral content. If you want more of it, consider checking out our Patreon. That's patreon.com/thehoopscrew, where you'll get early access, extended, and exclusive content, all for $5 a month. And if you like it, there's also a 7-day free trial period to see if it's for you before you pay. You'll find me on socials at Paul James Games. That's on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. The Hoops Crew you'll find at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, thank you all for watching this video. I look forward to hopefully seeing Zach Butters in the Hoops in 12 months from now. But until then, we've got a long way ahead. Thanks a lot for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.